Hello, everyone. There's a lot going on in Magia Record, and I wanted to talk about it. In fact, in my previous video, I said I'd have a new Magia Record video out soon. Well, soon turns out to be a couple months, as it happens to be. Anyway, let's talk about the story in Magia Record, at least Arc 2. Usually my videos focus on gameplay, but I wanted to talk about the story at least briefly once it was finished. Because obviously, some people watching this, maybe you haven't played in months, maybe a year, maybe you haven't even played since NA closed down. Well, Arc 2 finally finished in Magia Record. It's taken quite a while. It's been going on for years. Some of it's just been stalled due to COVID. Some of the chapters were taking several months for them to come out, but end up coming in rapid succession to end it. And it ended all right. Let's talk about why and what Arc 2 was about. I don't want to go into too much details because there's so many events and prologue to it. Like there's the Green Jasper Diviners. On NA, we never got any of this stuff. But let's talk about the Promised Blood event because I think that sets up the most. So if you remember, when Arc 1 ends, Walpurgis Nacht is defeated and everything is good. Well, not really, because one of the problems that came up was that Alina, well, rather the Magius, they brought witches from outside cities. Kamihama had the miracle where people couldn't die. They couldn't, at least they would doppel instead of witch out. Well, the other cities didn't have that. And the witches being lured from the city Futatsugi kind of creates a problem. You have to defeat witches in order to live as a magical girl. And when all your witches are suddenly taken away, well, that creates kind of a huge problem. And in Futatsugi, there was kind of warring gangs going on. That's the whole thing for Promised Blood. Well, they end up, I guess, setting aside their differences, the easiest way to say it, and they form Promised Blood to get back at Kamihama, because now they're losing magical girls left and right. There's no witches. What are they going to do? Fight each other? Well, kind of what they did. So that's the whole setup for Arc 2. It's a lot about political things. It kind of reminds me of like Final Fantasy X going to Final Fantasy X-2, where things kind of shift a little bit. And it's a very compelling start. A lot of the girls from Arc 2 early, it's very convincing in their motivations for what they want to do. Obviously, the miracle of Kamihama, which is what happens afterwards, if you remember, it's given to little QB and Kamihama is now safe. Well, other places want a piece of the pie, and that's kind of what happens. There's a lot of other little things, little random stories. Like at one point, Yui gets kidnapped, but nothing happens. She goes back. There's a lot of non-stuff that happens, but the real big turning point of the story is Ryo. Ryo, you may not remember her, but she dies. They have some real consequences in Arc 2. Actually, several people die. Yeah, there's going to be spoilers, but if you're watching this, I kind of figured, well, you're going to be dealing with it. Ao hits her soul gem, and she dies. And that's kind of when things really take a dark turn in the story. She's not the only one. The fucking alien-looking girl, she dies. June. June was one of those characters I really loved, and she comes with her own event and a follow-up event with Mitsune. Mitsune is kind of a neat, doesn't really know what she's doing in life, dropped out of school, etc. And June's kind of the opposite. She's trying her best to make things work. She's going to Daito school. Well, June ends up dying. And this kind of becomes the trend for Arc 2. It kind of almost loses shock value. A lot of the people that died were really non-units. You know, a lot of people didn't really care about them. No main characters really died. Not like the anime. Anime, which I did talk about a little bit in another video. But, so I'm going to skip a lot of that stuff because a lot of it doesn't matter too much. Well, near the end, the main antagonist, you could say, ends up being Mikoto, the Mirror Witch. She becomes kind of the Walpurgis Nacht of Arc 2. And Mikoto, you may know, you may not know. Well, obviously, you know the Mirror Witch. She's the kind of the reason for the PvP to exist. But she actually was in the final event NA had. In Azalea 2, the main antagonist there was Hana. She's kind of messing around with Konoha and whatnot. She's a little bit psychotic, just doing things that she thinks is kind of funny and just wants out of this. She knows what the magical girl game is like, and she's just so done with it. Well, her only friend, or at least only real good friend, was Mikoto. And you can see her, she's just one of the pink girls on this. Well, Mikoto ended up actually being a full Majuka, and I really like her. They actually end up having a follow-up event afterwards. But anyway, all I need to know, the Mirror Witch becomes like the big baddie. At one point near the end, Mikoto kills almost everyone, but not really, because we fix it. We kind of work back. Kagome, who's been in the story since the very beginning, but hasn't contracted. Well, she finally does. Her wish is very important. It's so that QB can't interfere with the purification system. Essentially, she wants no magical girls to ever witch out, is her wish. She's trying to game the system just like, Tonkers and whatnot tried to do. Anyway, Mikoto gets defeated, but it's done in a silly way. All the girls kind of become rumors temporary as their power up. At some point, Yui becomes golden, like a collectible. And then Iroha ascends and becomes Infinite Iroha. And now they're in space and ensuring the survival of magical girls. Does that make sense? Yeah, we skipped a few steps, but that's all you really need to know. They're not dead, but they're in space. Will they always be there? Game doesn't really say. Kind of leaves it open. But the big thing is, when Arc 1 ended, we had the great Walpurgis Noct battle. You remember that raid? Oh, it's so fun. I streamed it. Everyone had to deal with Walpurgis Noct and like different elements. We had to all do it. Well, with Arc 2, fighting Mikoto, the Mirror Witch, well, it just turned it up to be like the Paradox Witch simulation, or like the Witch Annihilation. So it's a completely solo effort. Now, it was actually very hard. They had to turn down the difficulty so some people could even clear it. But it felt really kind of lame. It felt like it would have been cool to have another big raid event. And the other thing that kind of sucked is at the end of Arc 1, when it plays the credits, it's all about, you get Ui back, and you have all these like text messages from like every magical girl welcoming Ui. Some of them are really funny about, introducing her and wanting to spend time with her. But when you end Arc 2, it kind of just turns into like one sentence epilogues of all the magical girls. Nothing really feels finished, other than, magical girls are saved, I guess, but you don't really get the satisfaction of things are really better. Because, let me give you an example. Some of them are actually really mundane. Like, for example, Tsurano just comes like the head of the restaurant, and Felicia just takes her spot. That's their story at the end. But, that makes sense because, like, you think about it, this is how real life is. If, like, I suddenly ended my YouTube channel, like, what would you say about me? It'd be a mundane one sentence, too. So, some of them are funny, too. Ayame, the 13-year-old screeching child, suddenly becomes much taller. She becomes, like, 170 centimeters or something. Taller than Konoha now. Saw some hilarious fan art of that. Some are also kind of weird, like, I got it mixed up, but Kokoro, she just comes to terms with her parents splitting apart, and Masura travels overseas. Well, I guess Masakoko's dead, but you know what? That's fine. Hana Mikoto is the best pairing in the game right now to me. So I've accepted that. I've moved on from Masakoko. But that's just kind of how a lot of them are. Some of them are just kind of crap, and some of them are mundane, and some of them are bittersweet. But that's all we get. There is no... It's also just really a retirement of Iroha as the protagonist. she's been the face of the game for 5, 6 years now. And this is kind of retiring Iraha and her gang. So what does that leave the game with now? Well, they talked about it in the 2 years ago. They talked about it at the Magia event, and then they talked about it again, and it appears in the story. If you played the game, well, the whole thing is about Tsuyu, Mizuna, and Chizuru, going back to the Sengoku era. It's interesting because if you remember in Arc 1, if you only watch the anime, you won't know this, but in Arc 1, it kind of makes a big deal about the East and West divide between the Daito and Kosho ward and Mizuna. It's the poor versus rich kind of, story you always get in a lot of these games. And there is really bad blood history. There's been a couple events about it. Well, we can find out that it started all the way back in the Sengoku era. And Tsuyu Mizuna that's their actual name. It's probably where the ward name came from. That's where it comes from. And you can see them here. But this starts a bigger thing. So is the game, because with Arc 2 completing, what happens to the game? Is the game done? No, it's not. Puella Historia. Some people are calling it Arc 0, calling it Arc 3. Arcs or stories and different historical periods, starting with this one, which is in the Sengoku era. They never said what other eras are going to be involved. I mean, it could be anything. People have been joking. Like, we could have like a French Revolution magical girls. We could have fucking cave women magical girls. Why not? They've made basically that joke in the Magia report too. So very excited to see this because I was a little hesitant. People were pretty uneasy going into the anniversary. With Arc 2 ending, you always kind of wonder, well, what's going to happen with the game? But we have all this new things to look forward to. So I'm excited. And Puella Historia is coming up next week on the 27th. Really would like to roll for Tsuyu. We'll see what happens then. But we have a bit more to talk about too, because there's going to be new game features. Something that the game really needs. I came back to Arc Knights, 8 months ago, and one of the things I love about the game is they constantly add new things to the game that are a permanent feature of the game. Like they added a roguelike mode. The roguelike mode is so fun. I would spend a couple hours a day playing it just for fun. No reason to do it other than I just having fun. Magia Record doesn't really have that. Everything you do past your initial gameplay is tied to events. You have to do these. Now, there's usually no gap in between events, but you can only do so many tower events or 100 evils. You really want something new. So the new features coming out, one is going to be changing mirrors, probably ranked mirrors, and they're going to make it kind of like a win meta, because the current meta in ranked mirrors is terrible. I haven't even uploaded videos of me goofing off in ranked mirrors in a while now, because they added so many parameters. It turns in like this real spreadsheet autism. You have to get charge disc. You have to have like Excel draw, charge draw. You have to have like this one tank. Then you have to do a Magia. You have to do a Doppel. You need to do 1 or 2 connects. It makes it sound like it should make more girls viable, but what it did is actually made it only a couple were viable, because the best way to do that requires you having disc draw. And I think disc draw is what made mirrors so bad for variety, because being able to control the greatest part of RNG, which is your disc, has made it to where they're required for ranked mirrors. And the new thing they want to do with ranked mirrors is add different parameters, like they may make like fire girls do something different, or we don't really know yet. We just know that they want to add various unique parameters that may make some things better, some things more interesting, maybe even some new things happen. But I'm looking forward to that. It hasn't happened yet. All we have is that it's coming. But, we still don't have Scene 0, and it took us like a year to get the Oriko event, so, don't hold your breath. The other new thing they were adding was a kind of like a co-op boss mode. Don't know too much about it other than apparently you could spam emotes, and it's going to involve 2 people. One person, usually the stronger account. I assume it's just going to be random. It's not going to be like something you can do with a friend, but maybe they'll allow it. one person with the stronger account is going to be the one that fights the boss, and the person with the weaker account would be fighting like the ads, the little shits. And I think something like that could be really fun. I just want to see new game modes, new things to do, because as much as I love the game, some of the events get kind of repetitive, and it's something you see people complain about. But that's really kind of my thoughts on the story. Arc 2 was pretty decent. It started strong. The middle of it was mostly, other than like Ryo dying and stuff, it was kind of just boring and whatever. And then ended pretty strong. But after that, kind of just made me wonder, well, what are you going to do? So with this Puella Historia, I hope they will continue doing a bunch of different periods. That's why, people have compared it to FGO. And I don't know how how close it will be to something like that, but I think it'll be fun. I want to see various time periods. We're going to start with the Sengoku era and go from there. Another thing I want to talk about, I haven't talked about any of the magical girls I've rolled for. God, there's been so many. Let me go over that real quick. So there's been quite a few coming out. I did the video of me rolling for Kuroe. Well, did you know Kuroe also got an ult? Kind of fascinating because Kuroe, an anime-only unit coming into the game, you wouldn't know if Kuroe would be popular enough, but people loved her. She was posted everywhere on Twitter, on PMMM. Everyone looked forward to her. So her getting an ult as well, it was just great. It's fun to see because we know what happens to Kuroe in anime. She's just the character made to suffer, but now she gets to be happy in the game for at least this bit. So she gets the paddleboard. It's funny. The two Kuroe units are super meta. They're super strong. You really need them. But I love seeing her. So I got her. I got Final Oriko. She's not very good. But I do find it hilarious that her name is shortened to just Fork. Even in JP, that's just what they call her. Infinite Iroha, had to roll for her. She's really strong, but it just feels like this is the protagonist. Maybe her last ult. Who knows? Another one, I rolled for a couple other ones that were just good for Kimochi, or just ones I wanted to pick. I picked up like Papa Home, which she's really good in mirrors, but I also picked some sentimental things like Iruyui. I really wanted Mikoto. Mikoto was really exciting to see her come out, and her event with Hana was great. Probably one of the best events in the past year. And then there's Kanagi. We haven't come up with an official name for this version of Kanagi. It's like a Jalter look. I've seen her called Bloodborne Kanagi, Dark Nagitan. I don't know. I just call her Nagitan. And then there's the Mitama one. These actually appear in the main story for very briefly, one chapter. But of course, Aniplex, F4, gonna milk them as actual units, but whatever, they're fun. And that's pretty much it. I'm waiting. I would like to roll for Suyu. We'll see how it goes. I don't have enough for Chizuru as well, unless I get super lucky. But that's pretty much how I feel about the game right now. As far as I haven't been putting out videos lately, I don't know. I just thought, well, maybe some things aren't really that interesting to do anymore. Like, how many times can you do meme mirrors or this and that? It turns out people do love that, but I've been streaming it, and I would like to put a few minor videos here now and then. And like this video, I usually write a script for my Magia Record videos, but this one I'm actually just doing off the top of my head. Something that's a bit easier for me to do right now. So in the end, I just want to finish this video with saying, yes, there's going to be more Magia Record videos. Yes, I still play the game every day, in fact. And I'm looking forward to what's coming out. Maybe I'll stream my rolls for Suyu. But anyway, if you have any questions, comments, leave a like, leave a comment, or don't. I don't care. Anyway, I'll see you next time. Take care.